Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear partners, colleagues and friends, good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Vesna Viedov, and on behalf of IUCN Regional Office for Eastern Europe and Central Asia, I have a great pleasure to welcome you to the first virtual Nature-Based Solutions webinar with a spotlight on the Western Balkans. Today with us are the distinguished speakers that will provide us with an overview of the major challenges faced by the Western Balkan countries and also highlight the opportunities of nature-based solutions to reduce disaster risk and adapt to climate change. Together, we will demonstrate existing initiatives and applicable solutions in the region and also offer an insight into a new IUCN project funded by the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency called the Adapt the Nature-Based Solutions for the Resilient Societies in the Western Balkans. Before introducing us officially with our webinar and introducing our host speaker, I would like to ask a question. So my colleague Kristin, if you could kindly share the questionnaire. So we would like to know from which country are you joining the webinar. So if you could kindly put the link www.meti.com on your web browser using the code 9174120 and try to answer the question. We would appreciate it very much. Why are you doing that? Let me briefly introduce you to some housekeeping rules. With very much like you, we unfortunately cannot live discussion doesn't allow us to see you or to hear you, but we would very much like to hear your comments, hear your questions, your insight and remarks on this topic. So we would kindly ask you to click on your window, and in the lower tab you will see a small icon with a question mark. If you tap on it and open it, you will see a Q&A box. And there you can send us questions or comments or any kind of insights you have, and maybe post the questions to our presenters. We will take your questions in 2 slots after the 2 presentations, but you can ask the questions and comment, and we will come back to you during the whole presentation. So it is my great pleasure to invite our first host speaker, Boris. He is a director of the IUCN Regional Office for Eastern Europe and Central Asia, to welcome us with his welcoming speech.
Thank you, Vesna, very much for this nice introduction. Your Excellency, dear ADAPT partners, dear friends of Nature-Based Solutions, it gives me immense pleasure and honor to welcome you on behalf of IUCN to what is meant to be the first in a series of webinars and workshops on nature-based solutions hosted by IUCN Regional Office for Eastern Europe and Central Asia, IUCN ECARO, under the umbrella of the ADAPT initiative. When the first ever IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions was launched in July this year, we at IUCN ECARO were privileged to have our ADAPT initiative in the Western Balkans ongoing, primarily thanks to the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, Sida, who is with us today, and who I welcome in particular and thank for their invaluable support to this partnership. This webinar comes very timely, both because of the relatively early days of the Nature-Based Solutions Global Standard, and that we have all an opportunity to contribute to its further development, and the urgency with which we have to act if we are to build on natural ecosystems alone or in combination with other solutions, green or grey, to meet some of the growing environmental and societal challenges incited by climate change, competing demand for land, excessive use of natural resources, etc., etc. There are a number of reasons why the Western Balkans in the spotlight. Being recognized as one of the regions with high exposure to the effects of climate change and prone to disasters, the devastating floods in 2014 in Bosnia-Herzegovina and Serbia alone resulted in massive casualties and loss of property, The damage was estimated at 3.5 billion euros, with more than 1.5 million people affected, and lots of domino effects, landslides and forest fires and so on and so on. And this is not an isolated event. This is not a cost our societies can bear nor cope with. So it is very encouraging to see such high interest in this webinar from the Western Balkans, but also from many other regions, and the range of organizations, backgrounds, and competences that you all bring to the table. This is exactly what we need if we are to apply nature-based solutions properly and efficiently and harness on their potential. Our goal in the Western Balkans is not only to build knowledge and awareness around this new approach and standard, but we also want to effectively test nature-based solutions by implementing them on the ground and supporting communities in their day-to-day lives and activities. More than just averting the negative impact of natural disasters, our aim is to help countries and communities integrate nature-based solutions into existing institutional arrangements, planning processes, and make them central actually to our thinking and building a more resilient, sustainable future for our societies. We have an excellent list of presenters today, and I thank them all for joining this event today from IUCN and many other partner organizations. And I'm positive that today's presentations on the nature-based solution standard, examples from the region, experiences, lessons learned, and discussions that follow will help us all advance our knowledge and understanding of nature-based solutions. We hope that it will help us set some pathways for how to deploy nature-based solutions to build more resilient society, able to cope with the rising challenges of climate change we all face. In closing, I very much look forward to having a productive webinar today, listening to the presentations and your comments, and hopefully answering some of the questions. Thank you. Over to you, Vesna.
Boris, thank you very much for a very inspirational welcome. Dear guests, let me introduce you to our next speaker, Maria Osbeck. She is coming from Sweden, from the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, for her opening remark.
Thank you, Vesna. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to IUCN ECARO and the ADAPT project team for organizing this webinar on the very important topic of nature-based solutions. Western Balkans being the region in Europe with one of the highest degree of biodiversity and with ecosystems that generate multiple benefits, there is great potential to increase the focus on nature-based solutions, not only for climate adaptation and disaster risk reduction, but also as a cost-effective alternative in urban and rural development. Sweden and Sida has for a long time supported the EU accession and approximation in the region. Sida believes that the ADAPT project will be a great complement to hard infrastructure development projects by demonstrating how nature-based solutions can generate multiple benefits, including disaster risk reduction, climate mitigation, and rural and urban development, as well as employment. Not only that, but also protection of ecosystem services and biodiversity, and thereby contribute to many of the chapters and specific actions in the EU acquis and other international conventions. Nature-based solutions can support greening the recovery following the COVID-19 pandemic, and research shows that investment in nature-based solutions creates jobs. Sweden is currently developing the new strategy for aid development cooperation in Western Balkans and Turkey beyond 2021. It is work in progress, so I will not be able to share any details, but I can say that continued support to the EU accession remains together with the Agenda 2030 as priority areas. And there will be a very strong focus on environment, climate, and biodiversity. I will end by saying that the rest of Europe will have a lot to learn from the Western Balkans on how to protect biodiversity and how nature can generate prosperity. Thank you very much.
Maria, we thank you kindly for your opening remarks. We would like, before starting with our next speaker, the first presenter, we would like to ask one more questions to you. And you can, if you have any comments or if you have any questions to Maria and to Boris so far, you can also use the Q&A box to ask. So again, we would kindly ask you to open your browser and put www.menti.com link to it, and using the code 1974102, answer a question: how familiar are you with the nature-based solutions? So have you ever heard of it? If you never heard of it, then click that answer, or have heard of nature-based solutions before. Why are you doing that? I have a pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Today with us is our colleague from IUC headquarters, Veronica Ruiz. Veronica is the Nature-Based Solutions Program Officer in the Global Ecosystem Management Program situated, as I said, in the headquarters in Switzerland. She will let us know more about how nature-based solution addresses global society challenges, and we will learn more about the recently launched IUCN first global standard for the nature-based solution. Thank you, Veronica. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, friends of nature-based solutions. And thank you for inviting me today for this special webinar with all colleagues in the Western Balkans. So as Vesna say, I would like to give you an overview of nature-based solutions. What are nature-based solutions? It seems like it is a new fashionable term, like you may remember ecosystem services when everybody were talking about ecosystem services, but it's not a fashionable term. IUCN has been working for decades on nature-based solutions. We start already almost 20 years ago with our first position paper including nature-based solution for the UNCCC for climate change. And for there, we have been keep working together, even seeing till 2016, where the formal definition for nature-based solutions was adopted at the IUCN World Conservation Congress, the first ever definition of nature-based solutions. And from there, we have been keep working with donors, with partners, in establishing and embedding nature-based solutions into the strategies and plans. It's like you will see in this slide, in 2017, IUCN advises the European Union for the Horizon 2020 call, a call for proposal for 180 million at research based on nature-based solutions. And even now we are working as well for the new call, the new Euro Horizon 2021-2024. But even if we have been including nature-based solutions, defining nature-based solutions, still something was missing. And what it was missing, the standard to ensure that nature-based solutions is well adopted and well used. That is why, as Boris said, last July, the 23rd of July, IUCN launched the first ever global standard on nature-based solutions, and still we are keep working on nature-based solutions for the standard being adopted in our well, it has been already adopted in the last council for IUCN, but we want all our members adopting and endorsing this standard. The precision and progress of nature-based solution has to go hand by hand and contribute towards a more resilient and sustainable future. That is why, as I mentioned, IUCN together with the Commission on Ecosystem Management is working towards clarifying and ensuring the right use of the word and the concepts. So this will allow as well the right implementation and appropriation of the concept and of the standard. And why we need why this clarification is needed? You might be surprised, but nature-based solution can be used indistinctly together with other terms, like for example, nature-derived solutions or nature-inspired solutions, or it can be used also with ecosystem-based approaches. So what is the difference in between nature-based solution and nature-derived solution or inspired solutions? For example, let's talk about a wind or hydropower. That's not necessarily led to an improvement of the ecological system or increased biodiversity, while nature-based solutions, it is key and is critical to ensure that biodiversity is preserved or at least enhanced. And what is the difference with nature-based solutions? Nature-based solutions are approaches like biomimicry. It's like we are sort of like replicating nature. We are copying from nature, but we are not increasing the biodiversity aspect, as I mentioned, like we do with nature-based solutions. So that is why a standard is necessary, and especially a standard that can facilitate the design, the assessment, and the scaling up of nature-based solutions. This standard is made by, the IUCN standard is made by 8 criteria and 28 indicators, and is compatible with the ICL Alliance Code of Practice. This standard, it hasn't been developed just a group of 5 persons sitting on their offices at the IUCN. This standard has been possible thanks to 2 rounds of open consultation for 2 years, where more than 800 experts have been engaged. Experts coming from 100 countries. So, which means that all the different geographies have helped us in developing this first ever standard. As I say, it's made by 8 criteria, and the first one is the starting point. We need to identify which is the societal challenge that we are addressing. So far, we have defined 7 societal challenges, where we include climate change, disaster risk reduction, social and economic development, health, food security, water security, and also environmental degradation and biodiversity loss. To ensure the broader uptake of nature-based solutions, we need to roll out this standard. We don't want to have developed this standard and just be a document that may be in the drawer of all of our offices. No, we need to use this standard. We need to broadly implement this standard. It is a facilitative standard that is only a single piece of a bigger puzzle. We need to accelerate the plans for assurance and oversight. So that's why we are focusing on 4 main aspects while adopting this standard. We have to focus on the standard per se. The standard is made by 3 subcomponents. The document, we have the guidance that will help also in building capacities beyond IUCN. This is not our IUCN baby. We want everybody adopting and mainstreaming this and embracing this standard. Also because we need partners and colleagues and friends of nature-based solutions to embracing the standard to adopt the nature-based solution into their own context. But also, this will be possible by a strong governance and oversight system to verify and ensure the high performance and the right use of the standard. But for that, to ensure the use right, we also need a certification system, which is something that we are working on it, but obviously is something that requires many resources in terms of human resources, economic resources, and time resources. And this assurance and this compliance, we provide confidence and be sure that what we are implementing is avoiding the misuse of nature and misuse of the natural resources and EWs. And as I say, one of the key steps for ensuring the uptake and adoption of the standard is the use of the self-assessment tool. The self-assessment tool is the third component of the standard. This is a tool that everybody can use to evaluate their nature-based solutions. Whether if you want to design a nature-based solutions because you are in an early stage of a project, whether you would like to evaluate and monitor your nature-based solutions, or just because you have a project that you thought it was a nature-based solutions and you would like to verify if this intervention adheres to the IUCN standard for nature-based solutions. So it is a very simple tool. It looks like, well, it is an Excel document. Well, you have all the different criteria, you have instructions, and you have the choice to select what are your means of verifications. And also you have the choice to provide the justifications for why you are giving such a score to your nature-based solutions and per se to your indicators. So the tool looks like, you will at the end the result, you will have a table where you will have a score on percentage for each of the criterion. So you have 8, and as you will see here in the slide, you can give one of the 4 categories of adherence. So far we have 4. The first one is your indicators strongly adhere to the standard, which means this is a more than 75% of your scoring. Or it can adhere in an adequate way, partially or insufficient. And when we say insufficient, is this intervention does not adhere to the IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solutions. It may be a traditional conservation action, or it may be according to another nature-based solutions definition, but not to the IUCN one. So that is why I invite to join to all of you the users group and be part of the international community of practice that will help in broadly implementing the nature-based solution standard, but the broadly implementing nature-based solutions. And what is this community of practice? What is this user group? The user group is part of the strong governance system that IUCN is putting in place to ensure the right use of the standard. This governance system is made by 4 principal components. The International Standard Committee that will be fed by all the information and feedback coming from the user group and from the scientific knowledge, the Science and Knowledge Committee. This International Standard Committee will ensure the oversight and safeguard and will revise the standard periodically. The Science and Knowledge Committee will make sure that we have the right scientific and knowledge evidence. And for this, we need to work together closely with the scientific community, but also we need to work with local communities and with indigenous people, because we need to compile all the different existing knowledge, traditional knowledge, local knowledge, indigenous knowledge, and scientific evidence. And this will be also possible by setting up the national and regional hub on nature-based solutions. These national and regional hubs will help us in increasing the capacities, in reinforcing the capacities, because as I say, this is an IUCN product, but what we want is to broadly engage with the broader community. We want people appropriating the standard. It is not only for IUCN, this is needed worldwide. And lastly, we have the user group. This user group is the international community of practice that will help in compiling experiences and real nature-based solutions that have been self-assessed with the self-assessment tool. And lastly, I'm just giving you some of the existing resources that might be so helpful, I hope so, and I fully invite you to go through to have more detailed information about the standard, but also about the work that IUCN is doing on nature-based solutions. So we have a nature-based solution group website. Well, you can find plenty of case studies for disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, forest landscape restoration, but also you can access the standard. The standard is available online. And yesterday night I have a question about like, this is for free? Yes, it's for free. You can just download. We are not asking for any money. You can download and use it. In the case of the self-assessment sheet, so we invite you to be part of the user group. I can share with you, you will see here down is the link to be part of the community of practice, and then you will receive the last version of this self-assessment. And also you can re-watch the launch event that we organized on the 23rd of July, where we have high-level panelists, but also technical experts talking about nature-based solutions. And with this, I really thank you for inviting me to this webinar today. And any question, I'm here to respond.
Thank you, Veronica, very much. Dear participants, you can still, we are moving to our next presenters, but you can still put your comments, your questions, your insights on the nature-based solutions, or if you have any questions in regard to the recently launched global standards that you would like to ask our colleague, you can put a comment in the Q&A section. Our next speaker is Kristin Meyer. She's coming from the IUCN ECARO office. She's a project officer and a lead coordinator of the ADAPT project. So I would leave you to her now to explain more and give you insights of the ADAPT project. Kristin, would you please?
Thank you very much for this. Yes, so I would like to provide you a little bit of background of why we're actually here today, because this webinar is actually organized in the frame of a project that IUCN ECARO is currently implementing here in the Western Balkans called ADAPT, and it's focused on building the resilience of societies here in the Western Balkans for climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction by utilizing nature-based solutions. We're also very happy to have our donor present today in our webinar, Sida, and we're very grateful for the funding to make this webinar, but also the project happen. But actually what brought us here? If we look at maybe the more broader global picture, and most of you probably know this already, the most recent global risk report put environmental issues and risks very high in terms of likelihood and also in terms of impact. And if we look at the list, especially of those most likely, we see that extreme weather, climate action failure, and natural disasters are particularly likely to occur. And at the same time, we're also facing extreme biodiversity loss. And this is kind of where we came in. And for the Western Balkans, this is of course also a huge issue. And through nature-based solutions, of course, we can bring together these different factors in terms of climate action and climate change adaptation, but also with benefits for biodiversity as well as societies and humans. But also in terms of the impact, it's quite interesting that 3 of those environmental risks made it to the highest at this point in 2020. So we do need action, urgent action, especially also in the Western Balkans, as you will see now in terms of what has happened in recent years here in the region. The region has faced numerous floods, devastating floods actually causing lots of deaths and destruction to private properties, but also in terms of air pollution and other environmental impacts that have increased over the years. And we have seen also that the European Environment Agency, as well as the recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has also recognized the Western Balkans as a region that is highly vulnerable to climate change impacts, to environmental risks, to disaster risks, and so on. So this is kind of where this idea for this project came from, and to use then the knowledge of IUCN, use the knowledge of tools that IUCN can provide, including the nature-based solution standard, towards this and implement nature-based solutions here in the region. So then we have already identified a number of opportunities that might be possible here in the region, also drawing specifically on tools and methodologies that IUCN can provide. Of course, we will apply also the standard, but also tools such as the Restoration Opportunity Assessment Methodology, or short ROAM, because especially when it comes to the restoration of degraded land or forests and the conservation of habitats and integrated land management, IUCN can bring a lot to the table, and the region can benefit from these existing tools and approaches. Also, as part of this project, we will look at specific monitoring tools. Again, the standard will be quite important for that. So will also help us develop in terms of how we apply the standard and how it can help us going forward in terms of designing projects, not just in the Western Balkans, but also beyond. And this then brings me to actually the project itself. So the project itself tries to increase ecosystem and community resilience to climate change and environmental degradation across the Western Balkans, involving all countries here. And it does this through three main objectives. The first one focuses on strengthening knowledge and awareness. Of course, this concept is still under development here, and there aren't that many examples yet that we can draw on. It will also look at how can nature-based solutions be integrated into policy and climate-smart planning, especially also in terms of how do we make these responses to disasters or measures that are implemented for climate change adaptation, gender responsive. So having an inclusive governance approach is quite critical also in terms of making the project work. And then, of course, one big part will be to test a nature-based solution in two pilot sites in Albania and in Serbia, and to really come up with a good case going forward that will hopefully help us also to scale up initiatives and interventions utilizing nature-based solutions in the future. So since this project is still kind of in the first starting phase, there are a number of things that will come out very soon and that you can look forward to receiving or getting more information on. The first couple of products that will come out are scoping studies and as well as a comparative policy analysis that will look at both the national level and the regional level as a whole to see where are entry points and opportunities for integrating nature-based solutions across the Western Balkans. And we are still looking also for best practices from the region. So this is also a call out to you. If you know of any best practices, if you're working on a specific project related to nature-based solutions, you're implementing something and you would like to share what you have learned or share any good examples and good results and outcomes, please also do send them our way, because this will be really good knowledge going forward that we can develop also together. And of course, we will also build capacities and develop training modules that we're hoping to integrate into existing training institutes and so on. The second part to look forward to is also maybe more operational in terms of the project, is that we are aiming for a very inclusive and gender responsive governance, not just in terms of how we set up the project governance itself, but also how we implement different activities. So we will have a regional project advisory group that will advise mostly on knowledge and provide expertise at a regional level, guiding us a little bit to what scientific knowledge already exists and which way we can turn. Also connecting back not just to the Western Balkans itself, but also connecting with networks at a global level. And so that there could be a real exchange of experiences from the Western Balkans also to other regions, but also experiences coming in from other regions to the Western Balkans where relevant. We're also creating currently national nature-based solutions coordination groups, which will help us to work across different sectors that are relevant for nature-based solutions. Because of course, when we're trying to bring climate change issues and biodiversity and conservation together, we cannot just look at one sector in particular, but also these groups will bring together not just ministry representatives, but also civil society, local communities, gender groups, even the private sector and so on. So they're really helping us at national level to find opportunities and entry points from a policy perspective, but also for future pilot projects. And of course, in Albania and Serbia, where we will implement pilot projects, they will also support the implementation of those and then the dissemination of the learning as well. And of course, I already mentioned all of this should be gender responsive. So we're very much putting a focus on getting gender groups involved, women groups involved, and also looking in terms of how are policies designed and do they respond to gender issues. And then of course there's the last part where we're putting nature-based solutions into practice and preparing for scale up. So I mentioned that we will have 2 pilot projects, one in Albania, one in Serbia. And these will be designed and implemented using the criteria of the nature-based solution standard. But also it will develop a monitoring and evaluation framework that we will develop as part of this project to really make sure that these interventions are successful and also to be able to measure our success. And hopefully from this, we can learn and take it forward and hopefully also look for potential scale-up opportunities for future projects, and also do feasibility studies for the other countries where we don't have pilot projects currently planned. One big part is also to build a regional platform that can support the knowledge that has been generated or is being generated, and that also takes this forward even after the project has finished. It will finish, I think, in 2022. So creating this regional platform will help us to keep the knowledge, to share knowledge across countries, even maybe beyond the region, and to keep the learning going and to build capacities beyond what we can achieve in this particular project, to look really into what policies and what planning approaches exist and what can be done there, learning from each other. And this, of course, requires proper policy and knowledge, institutional arrangements and governance to be effective. So through this regional platform, we are really looking into making this coherent, looking also at how does this all fit in with EU laws and other global frameworks, such as the UNFCCC and other targets that countries have to respond to. And then build it all into one framework that can be taken forward for the region as a whole. I think I will stop here. Maybe just one note that we also have a Facebook group. You can see the link below. So if you would like to receive more information, do feel free to join that Facebook group.
Thank you very much, Kristin. We have the first question and it's directed to you. It is from Andrea. So could you tell more about 2 pilots, when and where, etc.?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So we will have 2 pilot projects. One will be in Albania, and we're still currently looking into where exactly we will have that pilot project. We're working together with our partners on the ground to see what is feasible and what can happen. Of course, the COVID situation didn't really help us in progressing, so this will happen hopefully very soon. In Serbia, we already know that the pilot project will be implemented in the municipality of Kraljevo, and we had a field visit recently to look at a site to see what can be the societal issues that we can address and what might be some of the nature-based solutions that could be applied. So this is kind of how far we've gotten for now.
Thank you, Kristin. We have one more question. Have you thought, it is from the anonymous, so have you thought of working with young people, youth organizations on the ground?
Yeah, thank you again for this really good question. This is something actually that came up actually quite early on in the project. And as part of our project advisory group, we actually have a youth expert who is supporting us with her expertise and her networks to connect more to the younger generation and to get young people involved. We also talked to our stakeholders already, especially in Kraljevo during our visit, how we can get young people involved, especially also young women, to make their voices heard more in terms of how we design interventions and how to implement them. So they will definitely be a part of the project as well.
Thank you. One more question directed from Vienna, the UNEP, from Sonja Gerbert. If you would be interested to learn more about the pilot in Albania, it would be more interesting to learn more about the pilot in Albania. We, the UNEP Vienna, is working with the GAF-LD project, where we will work on the pilot site's land restoration. So thank you, Sonja, for referring to this.
Yes, do send me an email. It would be great to hear more about your work as well, because of course it's always good to make it complementary and to see what other initiatives are happening also in the countries.
Okay, please, if you have any other comments, we have support from the Youth and Environment Europe, and Youth for Nature would be happy to help and support if needed. So thank you very much. We will have and bear that in mind. So we can move to the next session, which is actually the examples and applicable solution of the nature-based solutions in the region and in the nearby countries. So, Kristin, thank you very much for your insightful presentation and for providing us the comments. It is my great pleasure today to introduce you to our next speaker, Steph Costefanovsky. He is the head of Department of Analysis, Assessment and Strategic Planning in the Crisis Management Center in North Macedonia. He will offer us insights to the so far employment of the nature-based solutions in the North Macedonia. Stefko, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Vesna, for good introduction. Thank you for ADAPT project for organizing this event today in this very difficult environment. So we have to adapt in the new environment, and all activities we have to transfer in the virtual one instead of the live. So thank you once again to give me the opportunity today, and also to share our experience for implementing of project on capacity building for ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction, or abbreviation is ECO-DRR. through sustainable forest management in the Republic of North Macedonia. So I'm coming from Crisis Management Center. This is independent government agency responsible for the national coordination regarding with the disaster risk reduction. And also in the same time, I'm project manager in cooperation. This project we are implementing in cooperation with the JICA, Japanese Agency for International Cooperation. So firstly, I will provide some information about outline of the project. So the title of the project is Project on Capacity Building for Ecosystem-Based Disaster Risk Reduction through Sustainable Forest Management in Macedonia. So overall goal of this project is by ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction, measures and activities in synergy with sustainable forest management, disaster risk of floods, landslides, soil erosion, and forest fire on a medium and long-term basis are reduced. Implementing agency and structure. So the main implementing agency is Crisis Management System. During the implementation of the project activities, the close cooperation is established with the public enterprise, National Forest. This is the National Agency for Forest Management. Also the CMC Crisis Management Center establish additional implementation setup with institution in the field of forestry, environment, hydrometeorology, local self-government, academia, and other relevant parties. So the duration of this project is 5 years, start in December 2017, and period of implementation is up to December 2022. In this moment, we are in discussion with JICA about some extension of the project duration because of the current situation with the pandemic of COVID-19. So the purpose of this project is by ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction model against floods, landslides, soil erosion, and forest fire by utilization of multiple forest function is developed. So the project has the 4 main outputs. So the first one is related with the main result of the previous project, which we implemented same in cooperation with JICA about the prevention and early warning of the forest fire. So the main result of this project implemented in the period 2011-2014 was establishing of the NKFIS. This is the National Forest Fire Information System. So now with the current project, we are upgrading and expanding this very comprehensive GIS system. The second output is related with enhancement of the forest management and planning capacity in the forestry sector in our country. The third output also is related with enhancement of the capacity to carry out the practical eco-DRR related activities, and 4 outputs, the last output is related with the increasing of the public awareness. There is many activities to achieve every of these outputs. For example, for the first outputs, the main activity is related with upgrade and also the expansion of the current MKFIS, the GIS system, and also the preparation of hydrological models on the pilot site. Later on, I will present how many pilot sites we are implementing within this project. Also, the identification of the method or methodology for flood, landslide, and soil erosion assessment. Creation of and dissemination of the hazard map. Regarding with the second output, we are working, actually the project are working for introduction of forest management and conservation categories. This is the close cooperation with the National Forest Management Agency. Also, we are working on development of the forest management plan according to the experience from the Japanese side. Development of the forestry recovery plan for the mid and long term. And also we are working how to increase or how to make the current law and bioregulation framework to include this project result in the current legislation. Regarding with the third outputs, we are working for the development of the plan for construction of the forest conservation. This is the real activities on the fields, and also the establishment of some windbreaks forest, participation of the people, mainly local community, including the young people, improvement of the nursery from the National Agency for Forest Management to increase their capacity to produce the young seedling for to sustain the result of this project and to increase their capacity for the future implementation of ECODRR measures. For the public awareness, we are developing different ECODRR material also to the final stage of the implementation of this project. We will disseminate the hazard map to the local community and also another ways about the information sharing of the project result. So how the project will contribute to improve the current situation in this area in our country. So the current situation, for example, we have a lack of integrated public information system for disaster risk information, except for forest fire, the existing one. So by activities of this project, we are going to develop a comprehensive system for disaster risk reduction and information sharing between the entities within the National Crisis Management System. This is related with the output 1. Then lack of comprehensive forest management system oriented to disaster prevention and mitigation. By this project, we will be working on the application of a conservation system based on the forest function for disaster prevention. Also, the current situation, we have a lack of forest conservation works adapted to the disaster prevention. Within this project, we will implement application of the forest conservation activities by plantation and civil engineering works, or establish some synergy between the grey and green engineering. This is mainly related with output 3. And then strengthening public awareness and dissemination of the achieved result. By increasing the local and public awareness of the implementation of sustainable and effective ECODRR measures. So the first output, so develop, we have the existing AMK FIST, Macedonia Forest Fire Information System, which is developed by previous JICA project cooperation, and this is the mainly forest fire oriented. This is the GIS web-based platform for the collection and sharing information related with the forest fires. By this project, we are going to upgrade and also to expand the existing GIS platform with a different hazard map, another hazard map, which will be produced by this project, by identification of the high-risk area, creation of the hazard map, all the relevant information. We are using also the drone for the local pilot site for the detailed project design. And after this project, we will create, beside the existing one, which is related with the forest fire, we are going to create additional database with the data for the floods, landslide, soil erosion, and another common data. And finally, to the end of this project, we will have update and expand AMK FIS with additional modules for floods, landslide, and soil erosion. Actually, by this project, we are covering so-called all related water and soil movement disaster. Output 2. So the current forest management plan, which is carried out by the National Forest Management Agency, it's a primarily wood production oriented. So the all forest management units and compartment inside, they are working according to the annual plans and mainly oriented with the production of the wood. As a result of this, and also as a result of the natural disaster, mainly the forest fire, and also by some human activities like illegal cutting, we have a situation about degraded forest and weak ecosystem function. As a result of this, we have a natural disaster related with the landslide, soil erosion, and floods. So by this project, we are going to improve the forest management and zoning based on the ecosystem function of the forest. So beside the existing one, which is mainly oriented for the wood production, within this project, we are going to firstly to intervene in the current legislation and to change the function of the forest from the wood production to the protective and another function of the forest. Based on this new forest management zoning, we are going on a mid and long-term basis improve the forest management system and also the ecosystem function. So the third output is related with the practical implementation of the conservation work on the fields. So, and also the on the vulnerable area by importing the Japanese experience about their experience for the disaster prevention, and also by improvement of the national nursery and technical transfer of nursing. We are going to increase capacity of the National Forest Management Agency and other forestry sector, practically to implement the eco-DRR or nature-based activities, first to prevent the natural disaster and also for the climate adaptation. Output 4 is related with the dissemination of the result. We are producing different eco-DRR material. This is the newsletter. Also, we have a Facebook page, eco-DRR concept workshop. We are organizing organized up to now some national workshop within the eco-DRR project in October last year. Regional workshop was held in Skopje for the Western Balkans countries, and also the participant from Bulgaria were present. The initial experience of this project within this seminar was shared, and also was organized the field activities for the first pilot location to observe the ongoing eco-DRR activities. Unfortunately, the representative of the IUCN office, regional office, last year, they are not able to participate in this regional seminar and also to see practically our experience from our project. I hope that in the near future, we will have a chance to establish a close cooperation and synergy between two projects. So the project site, within this project, we have 3 pilot locations where we are going to implement different oriented eco-DRR activities, and also we have one nursery location. So the Skopje, Veles and Radoviš, that is a pilot location where we are going to implement different eco-DRR activities, and St. Nicole, this is the central nursery of the public enterprise for the National Forest Management. For example, in the first location in Radoviš, the purpose of the eco-DRR activities is prevention and reduction of floods risk, soil erosion, and then stabilization of land by afforestation, construction works, and also the ground vegetation. Around the Veles, there is a Lisice Dam. This location is related with the protection of the water resources and reservoirs from extensive sedimentation and afforestation, by afforestation, and also the construction works. Third location is near Skopje, the mountain Vodno. The main purpose of these pilot activities will be protection of the environment and promotion of the concept of forest function for health and also the recreational benefits of the citizens. And as I mentioned, in St. Nicole, the modernization of the central nursery of the public enterprise national forest and strengthening of the capacity for production of seedlings for implementation of the field eco-DRR measurement activities. So that now I'm going to present the activities on the first pilot location, Radoviš location. Some background information, what was the criteria about selection of this pilot location. So the city of Radoviš and the surroundings are frequently exposed to the torrential floods from the Radoviška river. This is very frequently happen, the flash floods in the area of Radoviš city with the big damage of the infrastructure, and unfortunately in some occasion we have human losses. Also beside the infrastructure damages, there is also damage on the agricultural lands and another infrastructure. So we start with the first phase of this project, preparatory activities in the Radoviš area. So the first, we are enter and establish the close communication with the local self-governments, with the mayor of Radoviš. There is a representative, MP representative of the national parliament from the Radoviš city, by explanation of the project purpose and also the need to establish the future cooperation on the local level. And then we start with the field survey, data collection, and project design preparation. Representative for our institution, they work together with the expert from JICA from Japan about the preparation of the project design by using different technology and also the droning to prepare the detailed design about these activities. As a result of all this work, The detailed design for the project intervention on this site was prepared. Actually, this is the watershed of Radoviška Reka, starting from the mountain here, and this is the Radoviš city, which is very often affected by the flash floods from this site. Looking from the right side, from the river flow, this is the completely deforested area. From another side, there is a good forest management and ecosystem. And according to the criteria which we established and the previous inspection and the risk assessment, we decide the project intervention to be here on this site, the two microsite pilot location, site 1 and site 2. This is the project design for site 1. And last year we are working on the implementation of the activities. Activities for the on the field, they consist of the planting, some terracing work, implementation of the check dams, gabion, and these activities was started in May 2009. The activities were started on the total area of 6.2 hectares in the site 1. Now we are on the mid preparation of the similar project design for the site 2, but because of the current situation, the short-term expert from Japan, they cannot arrive in Macedonia, and we cannot continue with the preparation of the detailed design. Second phase of the project, we start based on the previously established design. We start with conservation activities. This is the site location, overview of the terracing work, and then we have to fence the location to protect the young seedlings. You can see from the picture that animals now it's quite confused because they are a regular route now it's closed. And then we are start with a very heavy destroyed area by implementation of the check dams for the stabilization. And these activities on the first pilot location is already finished. For the monitoring of erosion, we established set up 6 plots in the field with monitoring equipment. This monitoring and measurement is oriented of water and soil runoff during the rain, and 6 micro locations with a different slope, vegetation, and soil layer. So the main purpose of this erosion monitoring and data collection is by after the every rain to collect data. There is an insight in the case there is an instrument for the measurement, so the water flow from this plot, so that the sediments and the other materials remain here, and water by this pipeline goes to the instrument. Here we are measuring how much water goes for this flow chart, and after that there is a data logger inside. We have some device. There is a device for data collection from the site. By using this device, we are just forest engineer from the local branch is responsible for data collection. They are going on the fields by this instrument, connect with the data logger, and take measured data. For example, after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and then by backing in office, they are connected with a computer, and data automatically it's uploaded in the computer, and there is a special software and another analysis. They can provide analysis and report for different purpose. Also, we have in this part include the university, particularly the Faculty of Forestry and Eco-Engineering. They are also part of this monitoring system because the data they are using for the scientific research and the preparation of the scientific papers. Additionally, for weather monitoring, we established the automatic weather station in Kojalia village. Actually, this automatic weather station is a part of the more than 40 automatic weather station which we have in the MKFIS. By the previous project with JICA, we intervened in the national hydromet system by introducing 15 automatic weather stations, so that within this project we are continuing with the implementation of another automatic weather station. For the purpose of monitoring of this site, we installed this new, it's a last year automatic weather station. Installation is somewhere here up to this part to monitor particularly and measure the rain and then compare with a runoff and soil runoff with another equipment which is installed down to have a comprehensive analysis for soil and runoff and how many erosion and other soil sedimentation we are losing after every rain. So
Dear Stefko, just a short reminder about the time, and sorry to interrupt.
Yes, thank you.
We have a tight schedule, so thank you very much.
In parallel with the civil construction, the tree planting was also the conservation activities. So this is the plan for the plantation, about area, about the species, about the size, how many size will be planted in different area, and also the planting design for each tree species. For example, we are using the Robinia, black pine, oak, and ash. This is the situation in the national seedling production in the central nursery. In parallel, we are producing the new seedlings. And then last year, mid of November and the mid of December, this young seedling were implemented on the field. And this is the situation from this summer. So the very good implementation of the young seedling on the field. And you can see from the picture that the ecosystem start and also the ground vegetation, it's now much better than previously. So the second location, it's Lisice Dam location. Some previous design is finished, but we have to work about the additional. Main purpose of these activities, this is the dam of Lisice, hydro system which supply for drinking water for 60,000 citizens of neighboring city of Veles. And the main problem of this accumulation, it's sedimentation, because on the hill around the lake, because of the forest fire and all other degradation, it's mainly after the heavy rain, sedimentation, rocks and stone goes to the accumulation to the water. Well, this is the site for the project intervention. We have also the similar activities, like installation of check dams, planting. These activities we are planning to start next year. The third activities in Skopje Vodno, this is mainly to environment protection and recreation for the citizens of Skopje. This location will be start to the end of 2001 and finish to 2022. So conclusion, this project significantly will contribute to the promotion and implementation of the ECO-DRR concept in nature-based activities for disaster risk reduction in the Republic of North Macedonia. And also by implementation of this project, we will provide the transfer of technical equipment and also the knowledge, experience and good practices from Japan to the involved organization from the Macedonian side, which will provide the capacity for replication of similar activities and also the sustainability of the project result. The application of eco-based DRR solution will greatly increase the public awareness of the multifunctional benefits of ecosystems and using the nature's own resources to protect lives and goods of the citizens. Eco-based or nature-based solution greatly contribute to the long-term and sustainable management and use of the nature in overcoming current and future socio-environmental challenges, such as risk of the natural disaster, mitigation and adaptation to the climate change, protection of the water resources, nature protection, improvement of the human health and well-being. The application of the concept and method of nature-based solution is environmental friendly, cost-effective, self-sustainable, and provides multi-use benefits for the lives of citizens, socioeconomic perspective, and also the resilience of the society. So, on behalf of the whole JICA team for the project implementation, thank you for your attention in Japanese style. So, please for your question and discussion. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Steph. It was very interesting to learn and to hear more about these projects. We have questions piling up. We will answer them right after our next speaker. We have 20 minutes until the end of the webinar, so we will try to be in the time and in the schedule. I have a pleasure now to invite you to our last speaker for today. Dimitris Faloutzos, Deputy Regional Coordinator from the Global Water Partnership Mediterranean. Mr. Faloutzos, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for being invited to participate in this webinar. You see my presentation? You do. I will run through my presentation just to give some time for questions and answers. This presentation will not be specifically about explaining nature-based solutions. Rather, it will be explaining a cooperation approach and transboundary based in the identification of needs and the identification of solutions, part of which we hope to have the nature-based solution. So it's more like an input in the theme of all of us, what nature-based solutions and how for what needs. In terms of, I'm not sure whether standards will be necessary for nature-based solutions. Nevertheless, guidance in terms of methodologies, technology, etc., awareness raising, that is for sure necessary. So I land you now to the Dream Basin, which sits in the Western Balkans, 5 sub-basins. The Lake Prespa is shared by 3 countries, Lake Ohrid by 2 countries, Lake Skadashkoder by 2 countries as well. So imagine there is a river that connects 3 international lakes and and flows into the Adriatic Sea. It's a biodiversity hotspot, and one would say that with so much nature infrastructure in place, what else would you need? But is this the case? We'll see in a while. Take you back in 2006, where there was the initiation of efforts for the establishment of cooperation at the Dream Basin level. There was a dialogue financed by Swedish taxpayers as well, the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency in cooperation with UNECE, and there was a signing of a memorandum of understanding in 2011, just to give you the framework of the cooperation and what we're discussing about. That provides a political framework for the cooperation and defines the context of cooperation. Among others, it established a coordination group, which is a de facto, at the moment, joint commission, as the memorandum of understanding is soft international law. The Dream Core group, it has 4 expert working groups, the meeting of the parties, the ministries, and the secretariat is served by GWP Med. Now, the MOU includes short and medium and long-term actions. Financing for this came from a UNDP GEF GWP project that what actually, apart from institutional capacity building and empowering the countries in taking over coordination over the activities of the Dream Basin, actually it followed a very classical approach, analyzing, identifying the needs and the issues, and identifying the solutions. In GIF jargon, this is called transboundary diagnostic analysis in terms of the identification of issues, which is actually it's hard science to identify what is wrong, and through a causal chain analysis to identify the causes and the root causes of the issues identified. For example, there is nutrients pollution from agriculture and settlements. To identify what is the cause, so as to identify the correct solution to address the root cause. Cut a long story short, 5 transboundary issues were identified: water quality deterioration, variability of hydrological regime, biodiversity degradation, sedimentary transport regime variability, and climate change is an overarching issue. Understanding the issues, we understand we can build the actions, the list of actions. A strategic action program is in place, was signed at high level, ministerial level in 2020 in April. It has specific goals, objectives, sub-objective activities, just to show you that this is structured, nothing more than that you need to know. So we have cooperation in place established, and we have an MOU, and there is not an international sheriff that can enforce international agreements. So it is the willingness of the countries that take over responsibilities and the capacity of the countries to take over responsibilities to implement those solutions. Now, the strategic action program that's signed at the ministerial level is exactly as this: identify specific goals to be achieved in a certain amount of time, and then whether this is implemented or not, the activities, this is in discretion of the countries. Access to information, sustainable water use, cooperation measures for DRR, management of solid waste, addressing pollution, nutrients, and hazardous substances. These are the goals. Now, as I said previously, there is so much natural infrastructure in the basin. Do we use just that and we're fine? Yes or no? We can, nevertheless, we need to find the right balance because there are societal needs in place that needs to be we need to have take into consideration. Now, in terms of nature-based solutions and whether these are distinctively identified and being part of the more than 100 solutions identified and listed in the strategic action program and signed off by the ministers, I would say, and I will add to the initial the rationale we heard from the initials from the speakers in the beginning. The nature-based solutions is a title. Nevertheless, what contains depends on the issue, depends on the capacity in place, depends on the means. Now, complex issues, complex needs, demands. There are no easy solutions for complex needs, complex issues. For example, pollution in the area. So we need a basket of solutions, and we hope, and this is what we try to do through the strategic action program, that the share of the nature-based solutions in this basket is higher. We have done some pilots. I will just explain very briefly on two. In this area, in Skadar Lake, Skadar-Shkodër Lake, shared by Albania and Montenegro, what we did is we piloted the using biomass from the lake, which is excessive in certain periods of time, to build biofuel briquettes and to be used by the local society as means also to reduce the nutrient footprint in the lake on the one hand, on the other to have a disincentive for illegal logic in the coastal woods, especially in the Montenegrin basin. This Montenegrin part of the basin. This is ongoing. We will have results by mid next year, and we'll hope to scale this up as there is going to be a second phase of financing by the GEF to implement some of the such as action program activities. The second is this engineering, mimicking the nature, constructing wetlands in Kramovic, in Kosovo, in Rahovic municipality, pre-treatment, anaerobic baffled reactor, horizontal constructed wetland. I don't need to go into details. Services 1,000 inhabitants. It's supposed this is being tested at the moment to reduce by 90% the overall pollution load, low maintenance cost, and cost effective. And it's cost effective, it seems, mostly for remote areas that cannot be connected to the main sewage and wastewater treatment facilities in big cities. Now, some elements about what we have in place and how this is going to be implemented. As previously, the strategic action program is like a voluntarily voluntarily assumed objectives by the countries. The next phase we have to have the Drina River Basin Management Plan. In terms of reference is ready. It is going to be in place, and the program of at some point, program of measures it should include nature-based solutions, and this is a driving path towards implementation. And for sure, this is the case for the Lake Ohrid Management Plan that is already in place, and it's to be adopted by Albania in North Macedonia soon. Now, as far as the strategic action plan and about the solutions, there is a blend of ecosystem-based management approaches, restoration and protection approaches, and infrastructure-related approaches, as I explained in Kramovic in Kosovo. But there are specific elements or actions that do not demand much of the investment, but it's for sure a nature-based solution, at least in my mind, or it's towards nature-based solution. Establishment of harmonized fish regulations, for example, in Lake Ohrid or in Lake Prespa, that for sure protect and restore the ecosystem with no much investment necessary. Of course, we need to understand there's not much work to be done prior to that, understand what is necessary. So we have the regulations in place, and the harmonization needs to be, that is in policy and in policy level and in lawmaking, needs to have hard science behind it. Also, harmonization of the zoning system in area. I would take you, for example, the Skala-Škoder. We have different zoning system and regimes from the two parts of the basin in Albania and Montenegro. Best agricultural practices. A range of nature-based solutions could be applied, not only to fight here against erosion and DRR, but also for pollution. Of course, forest fire risks, to pilot intervention in this regard, restoration activities to ensure river continuity. You know, there is cascade of dams in the area. Flood risk management plan, so as to understand what are the structural and non-structural measures, so as we have the interventions that are necessary, erosion control measures, and so on so forth. I see it's already 11:23. So I'll move to the conclusions. As I said previously, there are complex issues, and the complexity in transboundary basins is that you don't have a single legal institutional system, that there is identification of a need and the solution, and then you just have the necessary means in place, or you find the necessary means in place to apply the solution. When we're speaking about transboundary basins, we need to have the consensus of all countries. So this adds another layer of complexity. So complex issues demand a basket of or a combination of solutions. And we all agree it will be of the benefit for the society and the nature if we have the nature-based solutions as have a bigger share in this basket. And we should try in this regard. Now, especially, I think this is the next point is for all nature-based solutions, because any intervention in nature, if something goes wrong, then to reverse anything that goes bad, then it takes years. But especially in transboundary basins, because we need to have coordination among countries and all countries to be persuaded about the need and agree, we need solid scientific basis to be in place before the selection of the types of the solutions, as well as the focus areas. Remember that in transboundary basins, who takes action and taking the cost of this action actually matters. The solutions need to be identified as part of an official cooperation process or a coordinated management plan. So we have balance in terms of approaches and actions among countries. Everybody needs to be benefited, and everybody needs to have a balance in the benefit sharing, also in the cost sharing. Piloting and upscaling is a long process, but is absolutely necessary. First, to prove benefits and cost effectiveness, and also support decision-making. First, to convince decision-makers, possibly financing partners, but also to move ahead in upscaling this. All the above is part of a framework of actions to move from what it seems now to be like ad hoc nature-based solutions application to address specific issues, to something that is more generic, and to scale up to have nature-based solutions related policy recommendations and policy making. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have several questions that you already asked. Some of our colleagues have answered them, but we have one question that is directed to Stevko from Jaideep. How you measure that disaster risk reduction has reduced using evaluation? If yes, then please explain but more about this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. So about the measurement of the disaster risk reduction, so during the regular risk assessment process, we have established the national database regarding with the disaster loss data and also the information documentation system, so that we are documenting after every disaster. We are, based on the bylaw regulation, we are collecting data which is related with the consequences, damages and losses, and then entering this data in the national database. So that now we are working to harmonize this national database with the Sendai framework indicators, starting from each targets. If the question is related about this line, I can continue with the explanation, but somehow we are trying in the past 10 years by using the already implemented application because we are the central institution, government institution for data collection, and we are using the national methodology for the damage assessment, but to collect all this data.
Thank you very much. We are coming to the end of the webinar, and we have some questions that you asked and some of your very valuable comments that you can see already in the Q&A session. We have also questions from you in regard to the presentations. We will send them together with the upload of the webinar that we will put on our IUCN ECARO YouTube page. So we will come back to you personally in the emails in regard to that. Before we close and before we thank you all for your time and for your comments and questions, I would like to ask if you have any other questions you can ask, but I would like to ask Boris to provide us with his closing note.
Thank you, Vesna, for so skillfully moderating, and thanks to all the presenters and actually panelists in a way. We've been answering questions throughout the webinar, so I hope that all the proponents have received the proper answers. If not, then we will certainly look into the questions and comments and try to address them later on, or to redirect to some of the panelists. So, for example, what's the state of environment, if I understood it properly, in around Prespa Lake and so on. So there's a lot of questions that would require a due attention and proper answers. But overall, I have to say that yet again it proved that the time flies by. So it's short, but we will not be taking more of your time than envisaged. Thanking all the participants. It's already proved to be a very valuable process, as we received a lot of interesting input and interest in cooperation and exchange of knowledge, as exactly what nature-based solutions is about. So, for example, a question whether this project will extend to Romania. No, it's limited to the Western Balkans, but we would like to make sure that knowledge and experience spills over, and that we can learn from each other. So for some next webinar, we already thought of having it really cross-regional, because we already also have interest from sort of distant regions, you know, so Asia, Africa, to learn about their experiences and vice versa. So I really thank you all. Just maybe very last note, that building on Dimitri's, who said that these complex issues require complex solutions. Yes, that's very true. That nature-based solutions is a range of solutions. Some are just one-off and very simple, but multi-partner, multi-country issues and resource management, such as the Dream Basin river management, requires complex governance structure. With that, of course, we should make sure that there is a proper way of understanding what are the priorities and how to basically, with all that complex governance structure and blended funding, that we actually do not lag behind communities and make sure that we address their particular needs. So we very much look forward to working together with you and all other partners, as we already work with the Crisis Management Center and Laura from JICA's project. I'll stop here because we are already a little bit over time, and also invite Maria, if Maria would like to say a word at the very end of the webinar, and then Wesla, over to you, and then I guess they will be closing.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Boris, and thank you very much, IUCN ECARO, for organizing this webinar, and thank you for the two very interesting presentations, one regional transboundary from Global Water Partnership and one from North Macedonia, that I think are an inspiration to us all. And it's been great that there have been so many participants in this event, and I think that also shows that there is an upcoming interest on this topic, and I think we're all aware about the urgency, and we as a donor will try and do our best to see how we can contribute by increasing the focus on nature-based solutions as part of the broader development aid agenda. So I very much look forward to continue this collaboration and learn more from all of you on how we can move forward and make it better. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Maria, and thank you all participants and attendees for your time, for your patience, for your interest, and for your insightful comments and valuable questions. I wish you all to have a very nice day, the rest of the day, the afternoon and the evening. And herewith we are closing this webinar. Goodbye.